Over the weekend, a 44-year-old British national took 4 hostages during Collyer, Texas synagogue's Shabbat morning service. News outlets reported Saturday that investigators believe the suspect may have been motivated by a desire to release Pakistani Afia Shadalik, who is serving an 86-year sentence at a facility in Texas. She was convicted in 2010 on 7 charges, including attempted murder and armed assault on U.S. officers in Afghanistan. The hostage taker died after an 11-hour standoff, and gratefully, all of the hostages got out alive. In a later news interview, the rabbi that was held hostage was quoted as crediting past security training for getting himself and his congregants out safely. How important is this training, and how many houses of worship are now engaged in this type of security training? Joining me now to talk about this is the former Baton Rouge Chief of Police, Greg Phares. Greg, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Tony. Good to be with you.
Now, Greg, I know that this is one of the things you're doing now is focusing on houses of worship and preparing them for incidents such as this. How frequently now are we seeing these occur?
More and more, Tony, and certainly you are sort of an expert on that. It seems that attacks on people and churches and organizations because of their Judeo-Christian or Christian beliefs are increasing.
We've seen, in fact, there seems to be a rise in anti-Semitism as well in the country, where we've seen, I think, in the last decade, 9 major attacks on Jewish synagogues. And I know that you've worked, because we've done some work in the past, we've worked with those in the Israeli government. They seem to take this very serious. And so I think we're seeing a number of these Jewish synagogues working together to provide this type of training. The last iteration of the training, reportedly, that I read that this synagogue received was in August. Is this something that more and more houses of worship need to be prepared for?
Well, in my opinion, every house of worship needs to be prepared for it. And Tony, with your background in military and law enforcement, you know that as good as the police are and as diligent as they may be, generally you're going to have to handle your own situation if there's a violent attack. That's true whether you're an individual, a hospital, a business, or a house of worship, because the police, unless they're already there, let's say in an extra duty capacity, their response time is going to be such that a lot of damage is going to be done before they get there.
So what are some of the strategies, Chief, that you teach churches if something like this, a situation like this were to occur? What do they need, number one, to prevent it, but number two, if it occurs, how do they respond?
Tony, our protocol and the training that we do, we go out and we look at the church, we look at their site, we look at what sort of threats they may have around them. We look at how they can keep a situation outside. We look at their entrances, we look at how to protect those, and we look at, if they choose to go that route, armed response.
This situation in Texas, do you have any idea what they had in place in terms of what the rabbi was crediting with their safety?
I don't. I've read every news article that I could get my hands on in preparation for our talk this afternoon, but I don't know the specifics of that training. But clearly, the rabbi felt that saved lives.
What can, every time one of these things occurs, an event like this, unfortunately, you have some that you'll see it kind of create a rash of events. We've already read in reports where law enforcement now, especially in large cities where there's a large Jewish population, are being proactive in providing greater security. So I think this is going to be front of mind for many churches and church leaders. Where can folks go to learn more about church safety measures?
I would suggest, Tony, that they contact their local police department or sheriff's office. I would suggest that they talk to the FBI. I would suggest that they get a relationship with law enforcement, both local and federal, to where they get heads up on any kind of intel or any kind of threats that that might be out there that are not really acute yet, but forewarned is forearmed. And I would highly, highly suggest that they avail themselves of any training that's available from a provider like myself in their particular locale.
Yeah, I think Chief, we'd like this not to be an issue, but it is, and it continues to be. We see these, what the FBI tracks as hate crimes against houses of worship. The numbers continue to climb. And as you said, I think preparation is one way to keep it from occurring. And it gives your congregants a much greater sense of security when they know that you have a plan and you have personnel in place.
You don't want to be devising your plan when the bad guy comes through the door. You want to be prepared.
Absolutely. Chief, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tony.